Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a bit of a discussion video for you. I want to talk about what makes it awesome, okay? So think about that knife that you carry, that tool that you have, where when someone asks you about it, you go, dude, this is an awesome whatever, okay? And I've got a couple of things here to serve as examples. This is a Tim Hortons coffee cup. I'm not sure who makes it, but whoever makes it has done an awesome job because this cup, it holds a lot of coffee. It fits in every cup holder I've ever tried it in, and it keeps your coffee warm for a really, really long time. I've had morning meetings where I left it in the car in cold weather and come out an hour and a half later and my coffee's still piping hot. So, I consider that an awesome coffee cup. Here's a pen, here's a flashlight. Both of these I consider awesome pieces of gear. This little Olight S Mini, it's titanium, it's very high end, it looks awesome, and it works really well. The batteries are easy to come by. So when I'm telling somebody about this light, or if they say, hey Kevin, what's a good flashlight? I'll be like, dude, the Olight S Mini is an awesome light. All right, and I would say the same thing about this pen. Now let's get this stuff out of the way. I want to ask you guys a couple of questions, and I'd love to have a good discussion in the comments down below. What is your most awesome knife? What is the knife that you go, yeah, that thing is just great? And whenever you talk about it, you say, this is just an awesome knife. All right, and what is the knife, here's the other sort of supplemental question to this. What is the knife that initially maybe you picked up or it was gifted to you or somehow you got a hold of it, and initially you were kind of like, whatever, but over time, however long that was, it really began to grow on you more and more and more until you were like, yeah, this thing is awesome and I just didn't appreciate it. I'll show you a couple of examples from the knives I have here. First is the American Lawman, and this thing really is awesome. When I first picked one up, I picked it up only because I had heard it recommended so many times. When I first got one, of course, back then it was the Aus 8 with the thicker handle. And when I first got it, I was like, yeah, it's nice. I found one at a really, really cheap Amazon warehouse deal. So I picked it up and I was like, yeah, it's pretty good. But over time, it just grew on me more and more. And now I would absolutely, without hesitation, say this is an awesome, awesome knife. Totally, totally great. Another knife that I would say the same thing about, when this one was first released, I liked the sentiment of it. Okay, I liked the construction, I liked the fact that it was a bit of a throwback, but I wasn't, it wasn't on the short list of knives that I must buy or anything like that. It was just sort of a pretty cool knife. Now, after one, giving it a little more thought, and two, after getting to handle one for a little while now, and by the way, Scott, I promise I'm going to be done with your knives soon. I'm rushing. It's been, with deer season and work and a few other things, it's been crazy. I barely had time to make videos, but I promise I'm trying to get them all done. Anyway, I've got a couple of Real Bush Monkey EDC's knives, and I will be sending them back as quickly as I can. The same is true for Zell. I've got some Wee knives from Zell, and again, Zell, if you're watching this, I'll get them back as quick as I can. But this knife is awesome. I would absolutely, without hesitation, say this is an awesome, awesome knife. Now, the reason I bring these couple of knives in is because they kind of, they break some rules, right? It doesn't on paper meet everything that it's supposed to do. And by the way, sometimes a knife that does everything it's supposed to do on paper, you turn out to not like it all that much either. So that's one thing that I think needs to be pointed out at the beginning of this video, is that what makes a knife awesome is not necessarily just getting the specs right, okay? Having the right, M390 blade steel and the nice carbon fiber or titanium handle with, the right weight. So you've got an 8.5-inch knife that's under 4 ounces, and you can hit all those numbers, you can get all those features in, and the knife can still suck, okay? And probably if you go back through my reviews, you'll find a number of knives like that where, it's almost, and sometimes I'll even say it's almost awesome, where it's so close. I love the design, I love the blade shape, I love a bunch of things, but there's one glaring issue that really ruins it for me. And that's one of the things that we'll talk about as we work our way through this. So let's go ahead and start with some of the things that I'm going to suggest make a knife really, really awesome. And I want to start with a couple of knives this one, and this one. Actually, I'm going to throw one more in. I'm not sure when this video is going to post, but some of these may be sold or maybe returned to their owners by the time this video posts, so I may not have every single one to, if you have questions or something about that. A couple of these, well, this one is kind of on the chopping block. So anyway, one of the things that makes a knife awesome right up front is design. A knife that looks great, that you just look at and go, that is amazing. You know, that takes great pictures on Instagram, okay? And all of these absolutely do. They're beautiful works of art, okay? And that is one step in the right direction. By the way, let's add one more. The Boker Lateralis, again, I think is a wonderful, wonderful design, as well as a few others that I've got on the table that I haven't been able to fit in here. But these sort of stand out as sculptures. They're beautiful, beautiful pieces, and that's a good start, okay? That's a good step in the right direction. Now, I have had lots of knives that look amazing, but are less than perfectly functional, and that definitely takes away from the awesomeness. But, all right, having said that, design is definitely a key step in getting an awesome, awesome knife. And all of these, the design is nailed. They're beautiful, beautiful pieces. Let's move on to the next thing, and we'll get some of these out of here. By the way, one point I feel like is important to make is that everything doesn't have to be just perfect for a knife to be awesome. It has to be good, though. Okay, so I've got lots of knives where there's one thing that I don't love. So maybe, let's pick on this knife since it's on screen. I haven't reviewed this one yet, but it's coming up. This knife has a recurve blade, okay? And for some people, that's gonna be a problem. Now, I'm gonna pick on those people just for a second, and forgive me if I'm being a little too harsh, but if you really like recurve blades, but you're just afraid to sharpen them, it's worth your time and energy to figure it out, or to buy a piece of gear that allows you to easily sharpen recurves. For example, the Lansky, rod sharpening block is like $17, and it sharpens recurves wonderfully. Okay, so really, there's no excuse for saying that recurves just can't be sharpened. They can be sharpened. Even on a stone, if you're skilled enough, you can sharpen recurves, although granted it is a little harder. I would be inclined to buy a special stone just for doing it. Okay, so that's that little aside out of the way. But it doesn't have to be, every single aspect doesn't have to be perfect for a knife to be awesome. There can be some minor things that are not exactly what you want. Let's take a look at, so let's start talking about blades, okay? So here's a couple of knives, and both of these have big, beefy, tough blades that are designed to be very durable, very hard use. Let's throw in the other ZT, because it really fits this. Let's actually move this one out of the way. So I think this fits this mold even more, okay? So both of these knives are designed to be tough and durable and heavy duty and hard use, but both of them have blades that perform really, really well. And the Formax, surprisingly enough, it'll even cut up like fruit, cut a tomato, cut an apple, because the bevel on that is so long, okay, that it actually is quite a gradual angle, and you're not really just wedging it through a material. The same is true of this guy, even though it's pretty thick blade stock. It's not crazy thick, by the way, but again, there's a bit of room here to allow for a gradual bevel. And so even though this knife has both of these knives have blades that are thick and heavy duty, they both actually cut pretty well. And that's one of the things that, I think is kind of critical when we're talking about a knife being awesome. I think every part needs to work, okay? So it can't be, man, they really got the action right, but everything else sucks. That doesn't make, in my mind, an awesome knife. All right, so blade that actually cuts stuff is kind of a prerequisite for me if I'm gonna call a knife awesome. Action that is really, really nice sure does help a lot. Now, that doesn't mean the knife has to be expensive. Look at this. The action on this knife is phenomenal. It's smooth, it's clean, it's reliable. Same with the action on this knife. One more. Let's throw the Shaman in here since it's new and everyone's excited about it. Look at that. It just drops when I disengage the lock. So action is very, very good on all of these knives, and that is wonderful, and it really adds to the appeal of a knife when the action is exceptionally good. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect, okay? You know, if you get a cold steel, you're not going to be flipping this out. It's not going to usually be drop shut because the triad lock puts a lot of pressure on the back of the blade. Doesn't have to flick necessarily. I think the Mannix is an awesome knife, but it's a lockback. So once again, it's not what I would call, you know, a smooth action necessarily. I guess it is a smooth action. It just isn't an easily deployable sort of flick open or fly open action. So it needs to be, the action needs to be good, but it doesn't need to be amazing. All right. The biggest thing I would say about an action, now here's, you know, I'm going to throw a real wrench in the works here. Here's the Kershaw Knockout. I think this is an awesome knife. The action doesn't necessarily have to be perfect in terms of, you know, the smooth ball bearings and all that kind of stuff, but I will give this requirement. The action has to be comfortable, okay? So here's a knife where, you know, it's a very different ballgame. This is an assisted opener, but because it's the Kershaw Speed Safe, it closes halfway. It makes this really, really easy to work with one hand, and this is my left hand. So the fact that I can easily get to the lock, I can easily open it and close it, that is, I believe, a requirement. If a knife has an action that is hard to work with, you know, you can't get your finger in to get a hold of the liner lock, you know, this knife is quite easy. Again, I can easily get a hold of that liner lock. But if I had to really jam my fingers in here and couldn't get a hold of it, that would make the knife way less awesome, right? If the back lock was so stiff that I just couldn't do it, now I'm used to cold steels, but I know some people will complain about that. Again, that would make a knife way less awesome. How about the handle? Let's talk about that. The handle needs to be comfortable, okay? And that's all I'm going to say about that. It doesn't need to be, what have I got with, like, you know, interesting. So here's a handle that's really like interesting. It's got lots of detail going on. It's very cool. Here's another one again that's interesting, that looks awesome. But the main thing is, when I grab the knife, am I like, oh, that's really awkward to hang on to, and I can't figure out how I want to grip it? And no, I'm not. You know, it's really, really just comfortable and easy, and it feels good in the hand. Here's a bit of a, let's call this a, I'm not sure exactly what characteristics I'm describing, but a handle that inspires confidence, okay? And that's one of the things that I, in general, look for in all the knives that I like. When I grip this thing, I want to feel like I could really do some hard work, like I could really sort of tackle any job that I needed to tackle, and that knife is just going to hang with me and not be the source of weakness in my system, okay? And so a handle that inspires confidence, and that's just something, when you feel the knife, do you feel like, yep, I'm good to go, like this can really do whatever needs to be done? Or do you get a lot of flex and play and wonder if the thing's going to hold up? Again, this is an example of the good, not the bad. A knife, here's a good example. I want to pick on this a little bit. The Benchmade Griptilian, okay, or even Spyderco Endura. Holding those knives, they're great knives, but they don't, to me, inspire confidence. I don't go, yes, I am ready for anything, right? And it's not that they're weak. It's not that they're not, they're not up to spec or anything like that. It's just they don't inspire confidence in me. And that's going to be probably a little bit different for various people. By the way, on the other hand, the Benchmade Freak very much does inspire confidence in me. There's just something different about the feel compared to the Griptilian that makes the Freak feel much better, okay? So, and I don't even know exactly what it is. So that's my take on a handle. It needs to feel good. It needs to feel right. And that's going to be a little bit different for various people. Now, lastly, I want to touch on a couple things that are sort of, extras, okay? That if a knife really has these things, and most of the knives I've shown you do have most of these characteristics, but these maybe are not initially things that you would think about. The first one is fit and finish, okay? And the reason I say that is you can get a knife and it feels awesome and it works really good. And then upon really, really close inspection, you start to notice a couple little issues. Okay, maybe as a reviewer, I'm more sensitive to those things. Some of them, honestly, I don't care about. So for example, on this knife, let's imagine that the liners were a little proud of the scales. As long as the knife was comfortable and I couldn't really feel it in hand, I wouldn't care. Okay, and that could be said about all of these knives. Now at a higher price point, yeah, I get to be a little more sensitive about that, but fit and finish is something that kind of grows over time. And I can tell you, here's a good example of a knife that everything else feels good and it just gets more awesome. The Lion Steel Kerr, when you get that knife in hand, it feels so good. But then when you start to examine every fine detail of it, it looks like someone really thought about this. It looks like someone really put a lot of time and energy into getting it not only right, but exactly right. Okay, and those kind of details and fit and finish issues really, really elevate the awesomeness of a knife as far as I'm concerned. Versatility is another one that I particularly like. Now, as I say, every one of these, this is not a particularly versatile blade, okay? It's gonna have some weaknesses when it comes to a lot of different cutting tasks. Some things it'll do really well, other things it's gonna struggle with. However, all the blades in front of you right now are extremely versatile. I don't care if you're skinning an animal or cutting an apple or cutting cardboard or opening packages, you know, whatever you're doing, these blades are going to do it pretty well. Okay, now there are some knives, maybe they're really fine, maybe they're really heavy duty and thick, you know, there's some extreme, and maybe they're made for that. Okay, a fillet knife, it's not going to be very versatile. Okay, it's specifically designed for filleting. Well, don't expect the same thing out of that you would out of your EDC knife. All right. But versatility is another one that I think adds to awesomeness. Durability, right? A knife that's going to stand the test of time. And this is going to be more true. You know, the Rat 1 is a great example of this. It's not expensive. And I can tell you, I carried, not this particular Rat 1. As you can see by the clip, I do have quite a bit of carry on this one as well. But my original Rat 1 in Aus-8 steel, I carried it so much. It was really before I was into collecting knives so much, or before I had a YouTube channel. But probably 4 years, you know, day in and day out, I carried it every single day. And I can tell you that although that knife looks a little worse for wear, it is as functional today as it was on the day I got it. And that is awesome, right? That is durability. That's what I like to see. And so all of these I kind of consider sort of secondary features that maybe are going to reveal themselves over time. And that's why I asked that secondary question at the top. What's the knife that maybe initially you were only so-so on, but eventually you began to love it more and more? So there you go, guys. That's what I think makes a knife awesome. We've considered, you know, function and comfort and design and, you know, the various components, the blade and the action and the handle and how they all work together and all those things. You know, when they come together just right, you get an awesome knife. And if one is missing, you know, you end up with a knife that may be good, may even be useful, but isn't awesome. So, again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you soon.